Thank you for joining us on TRP Live, a program created by the Reclamation Project, the folks who believe in no soul left behind. It was started to have candid discussions on real issues that impact people and to showcase stories that edify the Christian journey, like today. So, welcome. I'm your host, Stan Mackey. So, born and raised in Hong Kong, this Loma Linda University professor felt a connection to God at an early age. Compelled to take her commitment to the next level, she eventually got baptized. But sometime later, she experienced a turning point which compelled her to leave. Ultimately, she made a turnaround. But what compelled that? And why did she decide to leave in the first place? These are some questions that we're going to find out as we speak with Dr. Angela Lee about her journey on returning to God, as we're entitling today's show. So welcome, Dr. Lee.
Thank you very much, Stan. And hi, everyone.
It's good to have you here. So, you know what? I think I get the sense that my internet connection is acting up once again. Is it delaying again? Do you see some delay?
A little bit.
Okay. Let me see here what I can do. I don't know why this has to happen today. We've been doing so well for the past few months. We did have a little blurb this past weekend. Some challenges, but wow, why is this happening today? So, you know what? I think I'm gonna do something here. So just bear with me.
No worries.
I'm going to switch cameras and put it to a native camera. So for those of you who are tuning in, just bear with me 1 sec. And let's get this going so we can talk.
Good improvisation.
With you. All right, let's see here. 1 second. Let's switch our camera.
Awesome.
All right, it's just is that a little bit better?
Yeah.
No delay? Okay. I think
perfect.
actually. Awesome. So, Dr. Lee, so we just gave you your introduction, and people know the premise of this show. They know a little bit about what we're going to discuss. So why don't you just take us back, if you will, to how it got started as this young person growing up in Hong Kong who has this, decide that, hey, you want to take this journey, go on this journey with God.
Okay, so as far as I could think back, it began when I was about 6 or 7 years old.
Okay.
My parents worked they were teachers, so we lived on a campus, college campus, and so without supervision, most of the time I roamed around, and I like to take naps under trees. So one morning or afternoon, I laid on a bench, and then I took a nap, and I woke up. I saw lights infiltrating between leaves, and somehow that moment I felt like I was connected to something bigger than I know. And back then, my parents will always tell me about God. So I would say, I felt the connection. I feel loved by God. So that started my journey, and I would love to just be in a church setting. My parents were deans, so they didn't like us kids. I was probably 6, 7. My sisters are younger. Okay. They didn't want us to interrupt their work, so we will always often stay home while they're having church. And I always longed and begged my parents to bring me to church, where I feel like I got a connection. So that was that. And you know how a lot of Christians parents, they would entrust their kids to the pastors for baptismal studies, for you to get baptized into Christ, and then get a membership into a community. Often those two things are enmeshed into one. But I always believe that getting baptized in Christ is one thing, and belonging to a church, a membership of a church is another thing. But it was never clear when I was a kid, And so I always felt that when I get baptized, I'm also I have to belong to a church or faith community. So the lessons that I've gotten from the pastor was very empowering, in the sense that he made me felt like the church group that I belonged to was superior, and that we had a special mission, but I had to step up so that I could match the expectation of the community. And I lost interest.
You know what? Wow. Okay, I can kind of see where things are going with that. Before we go there, though, can you tell me a little bit about what life was like as a Christian young person in Hong Kong? I think this kind of helps set the stage, because I think it is just so. I think it's impressive that you made a decision at such a young age. I mean, I do understand that your parents set the tone, and they also provided an environment to cultivate a relationship with God. But now, did you go to a Christian school when you were growing up, or was it
no, I think first, second grade, I was in a public school. In Hong Kong, where I grew up, where I was born in, the public school system is really good. We were still under the British system, so everything was very British-like, and everything is tip-top quality. And so when I moved back to the college campus, I was educated by a very small church school. So for a few years, I was mingling with church kids, pastors' kids, and teachers' kids. And sadly, I got bullied quite a bit in that environment.
At school?
At the church school setting.
Okay.
Yeah, and then
the church school.
Yes. And then I moved out to the public school system again when I started my junior high and high school years, where I met a lot of friends. None of us would talk about religion, and my teachers would never mention God. But I've actually, honestly, I felt a lot of love and support in those years.
In those years. Now, was this before the turning point? By the time you get to middle school, is this at about that time, or it's still before your turning point?
The turning point was about towards the end of my high school years.
Towards the end of high school. Okay, so while you're in middle school, you're still riding high on your relationship with God, but you're attending a secular school where they have no mention of God.
Yeah.
Was there any bullying there?
Not at all. I made a lot of good friends, though I felt very bad for my classmates and friends, because I felt like, oh, they're all going to be lost. I will not see them in heaven. So I have a lot of guilt within me, but not knowing what to say, because I felt like an oddball, because I was probably the only Christian among my 40 classmates. And so in Hong Kong, a very small portion of a population are Christians. Well, within Christians, they're Catholics, Methodists, Presbyterian, all those, and Seventh-day Adventists, and a larger portion are Roman Catholics. And then the main religion is Taoism and Buddhism.
So I took the I took the opportunity to just kind of look up what the demographics were.
Awesome.
Or what the demographics are in Hong Kong now. So I'm not gonna date you, but at the time that you were there was a different a bit of a different era. So these numbers may not represent what they were then, but right now it's still small. It's 11.8% is the Christian makeup, which would include Catholics and all other Protestants as well. So that number was likely smaller then.
Yeah.
I'm thinking.
Probably, yes. Very accurate.
Wow. So I'm sorry.
I live on a street where one end is like Roman Catholic church, and my church is Seventh-day Adventist in the middle of the street. And on the other end, I would often see people burning money, burning toy cars, paper cars for the ancestors. It's like a Chinese Taoist Buddhist culture. So on one street, you can see all kinds of religion going on already.
Got
And
it.
it was normal.
Yeah. Interesting. So now we move into high school, and how does all, because you see all of this, I can't help but imagine that this helps to shape who you are growing up, and well, not necessarily for better or for worse, but it's an influence, and so, or
Mhm.
it's something that you observe.
Mhm.
How do we carry us now through high school as you begin
Mm.
to?
I think high school years were very confusing for me. On the weekends, I would go to church,
Okay.
and I would have to somehow. I wouldn't say I would pretend to be a good Christian, but I would have to have a different way of carrying myself at church. And when I'm back in school or hanging with my friends, I felt a little bit more relaxed, and I could be myself more.
Hmm.
So it was very confusing during those years.
So I can understand that absolutely perfectly. You've got to sort of a code switch, go from one person to another. Do you think that it had anything, or do you think that church and the obligations you were subject to played a part in this?
Yeah.
Why would why do you think you felt as much as you did that you had to be someone else?
Mm. I think there is a certain culture within the church that I grew up in, that everybody. Um, I would Now, looking back, I would say it's pretty legalistic. They judge you by how you act and what you wear. Um,
Mhm.
Very conservative. Not much room for questions. So you pretty much should behave or believe the way that you were told. So it was a big turnoff for a teenager, which when I'm sure a lot of other teenagers who are looking for the identity in themselves, in God, and in society,
Mhm.
and that restriction probably didn't work too well for me. I know that some people are okay with it. It's just me that it didn't work for me.
So, so I think that brings us into, is this a part of what led to your turning point? Because eventually, as you already alluded to, by the time you were done with high school,
Hmm.
you're moving away
Yep.
from
Yep.
church and also perhaps God. So would you
Well,
say that that's, we'll
I never
talk about,
stopped. Yeah, I never stopped going to church. I think it's still an expectation for me to attend church.
okay.
So for me to interpret spirituality at that point is, as long as I go to church once a week, I'm good. I check that box off, and the rest of the week, and I can do whatever I want. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Okay, so so are we talking now after high school that
yeah. After high school,
you continue to perpetuate church,
mm,
meaning you attended, you fulfilled your obligations, if you
mm,
will,
mm-hmm,
um, pleased the parents,
mm-hmm.
pleased your surrounding cast, but internally, how would you characterize what's going on?
So I felt that this connection between me and God. Remember how I saw church and God are the same thing. So
Right.
once I was disinterested in church, I also was not interested in God anymore at the same
Hmm.
time,
Hmm.
because I thought
Because
the same.
they were one and the same.
Mm-hmm.
They were
Mm-hmm.
one and the same.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got so how long were you living with this state of mind? How
Well,
long now would you
I
say?
would
Yeah.
say not a whole, not too long. Like, God is merciful. About 4 years or so.
And so somewhere in between there is when you made the move to America?
Yeah, yeah. And so I would like to share, if we're there yet, I would like
Yes, absolutely.
yeah, how devastated I was when I came over here. Um,
Wow, how so?
yeah,
Yes.
um, I left all my friends, my childhood friends
Mm,
behind. My grandma, which I love so much, she was back in Hong Kong. She was waiting for us to to help her to come over here, but she was staying there for a few years before we could sponsor her to come. And so I had my two sisters and my parents, who I actually know in the States. So from a huge group of community down to 4 people,
Wow.
that was hard. English was not too bad of a much of adjustment, thankfully. But I remember when going to my first day of class in a community college. I sat there 8 o'clock, economic class, I think, and the whole session when the professor was talking, I couldn't understand a word what he was saying. I don't understand why. It's just maybe stress. I don't know. I just like, oh boy, I'm in trouble. I can't even understand what he's talking about. So I started recording his lectures and replay them at home again.
Okay. Yes.
For a few months, yeah, until I got used to the accent and everything. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so you've got this very big adjustment to make with not having much of your family, including your beloved grandma. So how did things begin to get better? I'm just assuming that at some point God reintroduces himself. Well, first of all, okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say also share with us now your state of mind at this point. By the time you're at this point, where are you in your relationship with God, and then share with us how you transition.
Okay, actually, it got worse. I felt very lonely, and I remember I was in my car one night. I parked in a parking lot because I was about to go home, but I couldn't go home yet because I have a lot of sadness in me. So I parked in a parking lot close to my home, and I cried like I've never cried before. And then
why? What brought it on?
Just loneliness and missing Hong Kong a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, and back then there's no, I think calling overseas is like $2 or $3 a minute, so you don't really call. You write letters. Those days, fax
no Skype.
No.
Am I okay with saying that?
No WhatsApp, no internet, and so yeah, I was very sad. I wanted to go home, but I knew that this is my new home, but I just didn't know what to do. So I cried and I can even feel that this is my bottom. And so I said, God, I'm at my bottom right now. I don't know.
You spoke out to him. Wow. Okay. You talked to him, even though you had drifted. Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know what it's going to happen to me, but I need your help. That's all I said. Yeah.
So how did he respond? What happened after that?
Yeah. So a few weeks later, my parents now took us to a church 30 minutes away or 20 minutes away from our home, and they took us to a Chinese church. So it was just by accident, because my parents were happy with where we were, but they felt like, well, let's explore this Chinese church since we came from Hong Kong. Maybe we can find a community there. And so they had a huge young adult group back then, about 60, 70 of them, that meet every week together. And so I joined their like Sunday school, Sabbath school type thing, like Bible study. And they allowed me, or they initiated the questions, and they allowed me to ask questions like, why am I doing this? Why can I not do this? Is God really real? How has God been real to you? And those kind of questions that now looking back is very elementary. But back then, I've never allowed to ask those questions. So I came alive a little bit more. And so I felt like I found a community. And then I decided to read the Bible for myself one more time, because I read the Bible, but from a different lens. So I just pray that this time I will just read it for myself, not for anyone else or whatever. So I started with New Testament. Yeah.
Were your parents aware at all of your sentiments towards
No,
church and God? Okay, so you.
no, they would be very worried and afraid if I said everything like that. Well, I have brought those up before, but I don't think they would. Now they understand, but back then, I don't think they understood. Yeah.
So is it safe to say then, growing up in Hong Kong, the church that you attended, the climate was that they were not receptive to the types of questions that you were asked and answered,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to speak freely. Would that be safe
And
safe
now
to
I
say?
know that no one can give me any good answers. We
Hmm.
shouldn't be pretending to give answers to young people who are searching because we don't have the right answers. So instead of giving answers, we should just let people explore and walk with them like a journey, and not expecting, when we will reach certain point. But now I know. But back then, that's how I'm very passionate about helping our young people to grow spiritually, because I think a lot of times the church didn't start on the right path, if I could say that.
Okay. So you're attending this. It would be inaccurate to call it a small group because with 67, good gracious, that's probably the biggest group I've ever heard of in a single church. So you're attending this group with young people, young adults. The climate there is such that um, it's very real. People are asking questions. They're even imposing upon you very real questions and imploring you to answer.
Mhm.
So you seem to be enjoying it at this
I
point. You
love
said
it.
you came alive. You came alive. So now walk us through to your second turning point, your return, if you will.
Yes, definitely was a return. So after I finished the whole New Testament, and then all of a sudden when I came to Revelation, I read it in one setting, and I I the first time that was introduced to me when I was younger, it was very scary version of that book. But this time when I read it towards the end, I felt very hopeful, very grateful that actually there's a good plan that is planned for us, for humanity. And I was like, how come I didn't read this before? So I got really interested, and I started to be doing a little bit more things for this group. They put me in charge of certain things, responsibilities. So they are so smart, so that I will keep going back to fulfill those responsibilities. Yeah, and then
That's
I met
right.
and then I met my future husband there. So
Is that
that was
right?
important, very important.
Wow. Could you see that one coming?
Not at all. Well, he is also his family was also a pastor's family, and
Okay.
back in Hong Kong, I told myself and my friends I would never marry a guy who is semi
A
interested in
PK.
church, that
Okay. Oh.
that would not, so we can both disengage with church.
Uh-huh.
But but then, so you can imagine a lot of our time when we're dating. We dated for 5 years. A lot of the things we talk about was on God.
Oh
I
my
remember
God.
one time I asked him about just commenting how cruel God is, and he said, "Has God ever punished you?" And then so I thought back, I'm like, I don't think so. He just blessed me. I've never felt punished. So that was a great turning point too. That
Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Is there a singular event? This sounds almost close to the answer to this question that I'm asking, but was there a singular event that you could point to that you said, okay, I get it. I get it. God, I'm no longer a doubter. I no longer have, blurred vision. I have absolute clarity now, who
Mhm.
you are. Or was it more of a gradual? But if it were a singular event you could point to, can you share that?
Definitely, definitely. That was. I think we were married already, and
Wow, you were married already.
yeah, like 5 years. So it was a long process for me to slowly get back the trust of God. I think God. I don't know. For some people, God is always far away, and I remember I felt that, but now looking back, God was always there. It was me that I had moved away. So it took me a few years to walk back with a sense of trust. Because, if there's no trust, why do I go forward, right? So I think somehow God slowly allowing me to have that trust again, so I could just move forward little by little. I'm just testing here and there. Wasn't sure. I didn't want to make any commitments, but just testing to see whether, because I don't want to be disappointed again. I had like a very fervent love of God when I was little, so I love that, and the disappointment was so big, I didn't want to go back to that stage again. I just I couldn't. I don't think I could handle it.
That makes sense. Was your husband aware of how you felt, how you truly felt?
Yes, he was patient with me, and I don't know. Sometimes people say love is blind. I think it's blind.
Indeed, it is.
Yeah,
indeed, it is.
But I guess he saw the progression, that my direction, I guess. But he was patient.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking, how awesome of that is it for him to know your sentiments? And let me finish this off for anybody who's thinking, well, Stan, that you ought not be impressed by that. He knew your thoughts and your feelings towards God, but he continued on not only just with the relationship, but you guys married. Now, the reason why I highlight that is because I know that the expectation for a PK, a pastor's kid, is very high with who they marry, and that it should be an emphatic believer as well.
Oh yeah.
Because they'll quickly throw out the scripture that says what? You need to be equally yoked. You can't be unequally yoked.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking, wow, that's that's love there. Talk about that unconditional love. Mm-hmm. Did he ever share frustrations, or did he ever at some point seem a little worried about, or concerned? I'll just say
he's more worried about me now than before, because now I'm turning radical to him.
Wow.
Yeah, I think. See, the beauty. Well, that's part of the reason I'm married to him is that he never had an agenda with me. So he just walked with me along the way, and he never had an end goal in mind. That's his personality. So it worked for me.
That is so awesome. That's awesome. So you're coming back gradually is after you're married. So now when do you know? When do you know now that okay, I'm locked in. Now use me, God.
Good question. So that was when we were married already, without we didn't have kids yet, and I was home one day, and I always flip through channels, and I went to this Christian channel, and I don't even remember the guy's name. I remember his last name is Case, I think, and he was just being interviewed like you and I right now. He's being interviewed by a guy, and they're asking about his journey, his spiritual journey. And I remember he said that it's just like hiking. A spiritual journey is like hiking. You keep going, and then the further up you are, the more of the environment you can see. And when he went to the top, it was gorgeous. And so he felt like he went to the top with God, and he would never go back. But the way that he explained, I cannot do any justice with how he said it. The way he said it, I remember my tears were just dropping like a and I remember looking at him saying, I want exactly that feeling like that.
Wow.
I want that. I don't care about how I'm going to get there. I want that. And so I started praying. God, I want you to use me. I want, it's a very Chinese, maybe an Asian way of love. Like when you love someone, you have to do something for some people. Instead of receiving, we tend to say, we want to do this for you. That means we love. But I learned that, sometimes when you love someone, you need to sit still and receive.
And receive as well.
Right? But back then, I was still very Chinese. So I said, I want to do something for you, God. I love you. And I remember that was the first time that I heard this in audible voice that, well, not yet. Just keep educating yourself, keep preparing yourself. That's the exact word. Keep preparing yourself. It will come. Not yet. Very loud and clear.
So he's speaking to you to prepare yourself, and eventually you do that. So now go ahead and talk to us about what your next step was. What was the next level? How do you go to the next level with him? Well, in your preparations, which eventually ended with your relationship as well.
And it's never a straight path with God, from my experience. There are a lot of twists and turns. So when I was very committed to God at that point, I got pregnant, and then I had 2 miscarriages back to back. And I would say that I was still very I was still getting, back to God, not very, I'm not a very mature Christian at that point. So I blame God. I said, God, if you don't want me to be a mom, so be it. I'm not going to be a mom, no big deal, So I was really upset with my 2 miscarriages. And then I found out that I need to have a small surgery to correct some things. And then I had 2 kids. And at that point, because of the miscarriages, I felt like life doesn't come easy. And to be honest, I think that this is just a side note. I think that it is such a privilege for all guys to know that it is a privilege for women to carry a baby for them all the way through.
Indeed.
Yeah, and sometimes, especially for Asian women, we were told that childbearing is part of our duty. So after the miscarriages, I felt like it's a privilege. It's not a duty. It's not a responsibility, but it's a privilege that I could actually see a person born alive from me. So that was very special. I treated life differently, since then.
So now that one, I'm glad that you broached that topic, and this is really a sensitive subject. As you look back, I'll phrase my question this way: you go from a miscarriages to having successfully 2 children. Does that make you look back on the bad experience and see growth that took place in either your spiritual maturity or with your relationship with God? Do you look back and say, okay, I most certainly don't wish this upon anyone. I didn't like my experience, but now that I am where I am now, I have grown from it, and hence my relationship with you, God, is stronger. Was there might there have been anything like that?
I think the thing that I think the most important for me is that I felt a lot. Well, I was a person that liked to be in control. So I've learned that I actually do not have any control over my life or anybody else's life. So I feel like I rely on God a lot more. When my first one was a few months old, I remember I prayed a lot more. I let God take care of him, in a sense, a lot more than I would do before. So yeah. And my son, when he was about 5 or 6, I told him that, Mommy had lost 2 babies, and then I had you. And he knew all along that we were only planning to have 2 kids because they get really expensive, and I have only 2 hands, so I don't think I'm not that brave. Some people will have more than that, but I know a limit. And and so one day my son was sitting in the car and back, and he said, Mom, actually, I'm not trying to be mean, but I'm glad that you lost 2 babies. Otherwise, I won't be here. So when he said that, I was like, wow,
wow, that really, that's profound.
Yeah, that made me think a lot more. So sometimes loss are gains, not all the time, but yeah, something like that.
Although a young mind, what he said is just so profound. I mean, there's just so much truth to that. That's just so powerful. Um, so how do you go from there? So you've got that experience. You've got two
Mhm.
children now. So things are making a turnaround
Yeah,
for you. Things are good. Things are looking up. Things
yeah,
things are
yeah.
good. Are
Yeah,
you prepared at this point now? Have you finished your preparation?
I think that was just the beginning. I think
Woo!
I think having kids really prepare you for anything, especially if you stay home. I think it's the hardest thing to do.
Yes,
I thought I was
yes.
a patient person, and I found out that I was not. Could tell you that. Mom, you always yell at us.
Yes, that is so true. I can relate. I've been a stay-at-home dad with some kids myself for a while.
Oh,
I trade places. I
well,
wanted to trade places with them.
exactly.
Woo!
Yeah,
So wow.
and so I thought, I wanted to go back to school because my major was international business. So I had my own import export business, and I was working as a accounting person for different high schools. And I thought,
Mhm.
I need to go back to work when my kids went back to school and started school. And so I remember I looked on the computer, and by then we have computers.
Okay, all right, good. We're stepping into the technological era.
Yeah, online too. So we have those, connection, that type of internet.
Oh my goodness, modems.
The
Yes.
modems, yes. And so I was looking into a marriage and family therapy program
Mhm.
because I felt like I love talking to people, and I love to hear from people how they journey through their life, especially with difficulties. So I thought I would be a good counselor. So I looked at that, and the scheduling of those courses didn't quite work for me because they were all in the afternoons, and so I need to take care of the
Mm.
kids when my husband's working. So I was just looking at the schedule. I'm like, oh, what should I do? It's not working. And all of a sudden, this is the second time that I hear this inaudible voice saying that, what about chaplain? And I
Mm.
remember looking up, what is a chaplain? What does chaplain mean? And so my husband walked in, and I said, do you see me being a chaplain? He says, yeah. I said, okay. So
Really?
I click. I was an elder in the church already, and I was very involved with church. I have been holding women's ministry gatherings
Okay.
for about a few years back then already, and so I felt like I felt very fun in doing those things. So those are fun things. And by the way,
Mm.
I don't do things that are not fun anymore. So it's just I would only do fun things. Like today, this is fun.
Love it. Love it. Love it. That's my mantra too. Make it fun.
Mm.
Make it fun and learn in the process of having fun.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, I click on the Loma Linda University website, and they have this clinical ministry program preparing lay people for ministry. So I said, wow, I think this is interesting. So I look at the courses that looks interesting, and the program director of that program happened to be my neighbor. We lived on the
Mm.
street, so I knew where he was working. And so one time he was picking up his mail from his mailbox. I ran out and say, hey, tell me a little bit about your program. And so 2 days later, he rang the doorbell and brought me the whole packet of the application.
Wow.
I thought that was just, um,
Oh, that's significant to be
yeah, like
said.
I feel very honored actually. Like what,
Mm. Mm.
bring the application to me instead of asking me to go to the school to look at, the materials. And so, long story short, I applied, got brutally interrogated during the interview because I didn't have a religious theology
Background.
degree from undergrad. It was international business, and they wanted to know if I knew what I was getting into, and if I had a calling for ministry. So later on, I think I was accepted after half an hour discussion. So they had me waited outside for half an hour. So I was so nervous. And they came out and said, yeah, welcome to the program. I was like, whoa. And they were all night classes. And that was a little adjustment because I was really tired already from taking care of the young kids. My daughter was like 4. And my son was 6 years old. And so after a whole day of taking care of them, I went to school. I prepared dinner for them first, and then I have to rush to school, and then I have to call my husband, like, please come on time. I have to go to class, because I didn't want to be late every single time. Yeah, but the first class I sat in there, I felt like this is my place. This is where I'm supposed to be. And
wow.
3 years later,
how cool.
Yeah. And then
so I'm thinking,
go ahead.
Oh, wait, good. No, for a moment, I was just thinking, I don't know why I thought these classes were online. I figured you were going from the dinner table, putting them to bed to your computer to get online. But no, this is pre-e-learning. So you had to actually go and drive.
Yeah.
On site.
Like 10 minutes drive.
Okay.
But some classes are not over till like 9:30. So 6:30 to 9:30. So by the time I got home, I was never tired. I got so jazzed up.
Really?
I've learned so much. So my poor husband, he would have to listen
Stay
to
up with you.
And he told me that he can actually get the degree too because he's been learning with me together.
He's been learning everything. Oh, nice.
I'm like, what do you think? Why do you think that the instructor is saying this? What do you think? So sometimes till 1 a.m. I'll be still talking to him about what I've been hearing from class that day.
Wow, that's beautiful. You were on fire, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So fast forward us now to where you are. So you obviously make it through this program. And so what do you do with that? Do you become a chaplain? Talk to us about this. Because I guess for all intents and purposes, people who enter a chaplaincy program, you envision them going.
Yeah, a commercial too. That's perfect. So Loma Linda offered this program for chaplains, which are laser focused for chaplaincy. And so I did that. And you have to also take CPE units, clinical pastoral education. So I did 4 units, which is a total of 1,600 hours. So what they do is once a week we meet in the classroom, but then another 20 hours we work in the hospital doing spiritual care work. And then we come back and bring cases to discuss. And during that time, they pretty much deconstruct all your thinking, the way that you think you will be doing things right, even the view you have on God and on yourself. So you feel very vulnerable during those times. And after that, the reconstructions begin with you and God, basically. And so I did that with like boot camp for me. It took me two years to complete that because of the kids were still young.
And this is at your master's level, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or was this okay?
Yeah, this
and so you go
to the master's.
Okay, but you don't stop there. So talk about preparation. I mean, you were saying that God told you that you need to prepare yourself some more and go get educated before you begin to fulfill his mission. Did you know that at this point you've got your master's in hand, that it's more that you were eventually going to get?
Well, I think God has such a humor, because if he had told me all these things that I needed to do
in the beginning,
I would be like, no, thank you. I just stay home.
Yes, he knows how to do it.
Yeah. So that program back then was a little shorter. So I finished that, and the requirement was to do only 1 CPE unit, and then I could graduate. But since I started the first one, I felt like this is very helpful to me. So I said, can I do all 4? So my educator said, yeah, you can do 4. So I did 4 CPE units with that. And it's still not enough for board certification. I think in the chaplaincy world these days, employers would like to see you being board certified. That's more like it's a professional degree or professional status, so that they know that you will take care of their patients in a professional way. And so I still had a long way to go with my units, with my credit units. So then I started working in a hospice agent agency, and I loved it. But somehow I felt a call to move over to Loma Linda, where I received my CP education. And I said, no, God, I'm happy with where I am. I can serve you in a good way here. I'm seeing patients, visiting the sick, just leave me alone for a little bit. But I remember one time with if they devotional that somehow when I rewatched that video, it was nothing like that. But that day, it was a very clear vision to me that God was telling me, you have to let go of the shells in my hands in order for me to give you a starfish from the ocean that you can catch. And so after that, I stopped asking anybody else, what I should do. I just said, God, I know. Okay. So I went over to Loma Linda, the medical center, and then applied for a chaplain. And at that time, they told me there's only a temporary position there. No guarantee if you would turn into a permanent position. So I have to leave my full-time with benefits position and move over to Loma Linda, just because I think I felt that God's calling me to go over there. Once I got there, it was very interesting. One of the chaplains went over to my position, and then I took over her position. So I began to do my ministry on the labor and delivery units, which I feel that it comes back in the full circle, that nothing has lost or wasted. I could use my experience with miscarriages to minister or walk with the patients who lost their babies in the hospital.
Wow. So now you're starting to work. You go from working in hospice, you've got your degree, you move back now over to you move over to Loma Linda. Now you eventually go back, you get your PhD, and you get to the point where you are now, which I'm excited to talk about. So go ahead and carry us through your PhD program, how God continued to work with you, inspire you, lead you, guide you along that way, and how he got you to where you are, because this looks like this appears to be the ultimate. You are in a position to just cast so much influence.
I'm still learning too. So, and so, yeah.
That's for everybody.
Yeah. So once I got situated in Loma Linda, they encouraged me to do a PhD program, and I needed those units to become board certified as well. So I said, okay. So I applied, took the GRE, didn't enjoy it a bit. And I started the program in practical theology with a concentration on spirituality and education. And most of the classes I enjoy a lot too, but definitely they're all new things to me. I was like like Alice in the Wonder World, like, wow, you can pray like this, or you have this spiritual practices that would enhance my walk with God. It's just like brand new. So I was like a sponge, absorbing all new things that could enhance my walk with God and help others to do it. That was amazing. And my professors were wonderful. They exhibit the love that I could never imagine. So I'm doing the same thing for my students now, but they have inspired me so much. And towards the middle of my program, I was only doing it part-time because I was working full-time with also taking care of kids. But then after the second year, I felt like I need to accelerate a little bit fast. I need to take more classes. I have no idea why. So I took more classes to finish all the coursework in about 3 years' time. And then, and then at that time, the university side approached me and asked me whether I would be able to go over to be the program director for that chaplaincy program. Now it's an upgraded program. And I said, I would love to, because I was one of the person who didn't get all the units needed for my education. And I'm more than happy to make it a full program for all the people that are coming now, that they could have a full program and get more certified when they graduate. So I said yes, and I said, give me 1 more year. I'm have to finish my dissertation. And it's unheard of that that you could do that in 1 year. And I worked like a monster. I'm not kidding. Like the whole Sunday,
Yes.
I would be sitting in front of my computer to finish that from 8 a.m. to past midnight. All I did was eat, and my husband would bring me lunch and dinner. Like in prison, I was in a prison.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, then they take the trays out, and I'll eat, and then I'll continue my thing every Sunday for half a year.
Wow.
So I finished my program in 4 years, which
that's awesome.
I would not recommend to anyone because it's actually take a toll on my.
It was grueling.
Yeah.
So
then I would be able to join the faculty at the time that they desire.
That designated. Wow. Again, I got to highlight, the love of your husband. He's just, wow, so supportive, doing everything he could, bringing you food, taking out the dirty dishes and bringing back new food.
Yeah, well, that's just my part. He would take care of the kids, and he has to cook too for them. And for that year, he did most everything. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and my kids too, they were very understanding. Sometimes my daughter would see that I'm still very focused on my computer. She would put a note in front of my screen and like, "Hey, Mom, look at what I've done." And then,
clever. How old is she by now?
She is she just turned 17.
Oh, 17. But then at that point,
back then was 6, 7 years old. Oh no. When I was doing it was just like a few years back. So 12, 13.
Oh, wow. So now you are the director of the programming for the chaplaincy. Did I say that correctly? Let's say it correctly for everybody to hear.
MS chaplaincy program, yes. MS in chaplaincy.
Okay. Yeah. And so you are in a position to not only teach, to mentor, but also to place people as well. So tell me, how do you say that this is fulfilling your calling and your commitment to God? Because again, you were once one who was doubting, unenthusiastic about church, about God. You went through a lot, all the way through to having children. And so now your relationship with God is repaired, if I may describe it as such.
Yes, definitely.
So now you get to this
healing too. I forgot about that part, but it took a lot of healing for me to be able to work in a church environment again.
Wow. Yeah. So what are you doing now? Tell us about this experience. In your position, you are doing a work. In fact, when I described when the announcement for today's interview went out, you were described as going from a believer to being a skeptic, if you will, to being an agent of God. Not just going back to being a believer, but you are absolutely an agent of God who's doing a tremendous work just by virtue of the position that you have. So would you share with us what you're doing and how you feel fulfilled with that?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Wow, that's a very good question. I just feel very humbled, and I think because of my experience, I can empathize with people, and also I think I have a gift of seeing the potential of an individual, whether just the potential of individuals. For example, I have students who apply and their GPA was just a little under the requirement, or my other colleagues who never had that struggle could not see, well, why do we want to accept this person? And I feel like, especially if they're minorities, I always give them a chance, because I feel that a lot of times chaplains in most people's mind as like white Caucasian male. We need to have a variety of God's servants serving that role,
that area,
diverse colors or gender to represent God and to represent the people. So in a sense, I would take them and work with them and help them and nurture them and pay more attention, sometimes even to meet with them one-on-one on a weekly basis to make sure that they could they could succeed in every quarter.
Wow, you were being something that I describe often, and that is, in fact, I describe the Reclamation Project as a place where we aim to transfer understanding, if you will, because understanding can be both a difference maker and a deal breaker. And what you've just described, I see in just inherently as being a difference maker. You're
Hmm.
making up the difference. You see the lack, or you see the perhaps missed opportunity for some of these individuals, underrepresented individuals, but rather than give them the boot or allow them to fail, oh my goodness, you putting in the extra time. That's a difference maker is what you're being.
Well, my
Yeah.
professors at Claremont did that for me, so I felt like I'm just giving back on behalf of them, to passing them, the whatever forward. It's just like I received so much love and
Hmm.
um, support, so I just want to give back to my
Just
students.
get back. Oh, indeed, you're doing that. We're in our last final minutes,
Mhm.
Dr. Lee, and I just want to just have you before you even give your final thoughts. So you are in just an awesome position, an awesome place right now with
Mhm.
your relationship with God and the mission that He has you going on. You're a difference maker, but you had to go through some stuff. Is there a way that some of this could be avoided? So the question that I have is how might things or should things have been different in your growing up? So watch this. Let me make this clear. Um, Surely that the trials and the tribulations that we go through, God uses them. He uses them for the good of those who are called by His name.
Mhm.
But not everything that we go through the trials we have to, or we should perhaps go through them. I'm wondering if you could just help us with understanding how might some things have been different for you growing up that would have helped you to avoid some of the trials. If
Mhm.
you could just share, how could things have been different, which is helpful for those who are listening in today and who may tune in a little bit later. That they're in church, they're in positions of leadership.
Mm.
How could things have been different?
Yeah, I think if I was if I was nurtured or taught how free it is to live in Christ, the freedom that came with the blood of Jesus,
Hmm.
some of the things will not be necessary. I don't think I got that freedom early on. And I found it much later, which was great. So therefore, God didn't waste anything. I could now advocate and help people to feel more free, or in a sense, I could call myself a liberator. That I think that's my mission. And so, but if kids or people or people in leadership position could empower or give that to people in the earlier stage, it will be a much better world right now, and it will save a lot of people's hardship,
Some
disappointment.
heartache. Wow. 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 I hope people in leadership are listening to that right there. That is just so so true. I concur absolutely as well, because those are some things that I felt like if I had gotten, that I wouldn't have had to go through some of the trials that I had.
Mhm.
Granted, I've learned from them and I've gotten stronger, but did I have to go through them actually to arrive at where I am? Not necessarily so.
Mhm.
Perhaps not. Share with me. Give me your final thoughts. Your final thoughts.
Well, I see that myself. I see myself as a candle. Even though those things are not necessary, but it feels like all those negative experiences bounded together, and by God's grace, God had made a bigger or like a larger wax for me. So I think I can shine brighter because of all those experiences. And so that with that, I really thank God that, He used all my everything and put it together.
Hmm.
And my flame could be brighter than without those.
Wow. Thank you, Dr. Lee, for sitting down with us today. It's just been great having you here, sharing your testimony. I understand too that we're actually going to see you soon.
Yeah,
is that right?
you invited me to talk on Saturday.
Yeah, not just talk, but give us the sermon.
Yeah, yeah.
You are coming to preach on this coming Saturday.
I'm excited. Looking forward to it.
Yes. So we're looking forward to. Can't wait to hear this word of God that you're gonna bring to the folks at the Reclamation Project. So we're looking forward to that. Thank you too. I want to say that to everyone who
Yeah.
joined us tonight. We hope you're tuning in again next time for another broadcast of TRP Live. Remember also to share, like, and subscribe to stay in the know of upcoming broadcasts and events. And my final message to you is, oh, the depths of the riches and wisdom and knowledge of God, how unsearchable are his judgments and how unfathomable his ways. For from him and through him and to him are all things. To him be glory forever.
Amen.
Amen. Until next time, good night.